Today on CityCast Philly, the latest twist in the shooting death of Eddie Irizarry and SEPTA's crackdown on riders who don't pay up. Plus, we've got a Philly news quiz. It's Tuesday, August 13th. I'm Trinae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. In the latest twist in a really moving case here in the city, the district attorney's office dropped the first-degree murder charge against former Philadelphia police officer Mark Dial in the shooting death of Eddie Irizarry. Asha Prihar, our Hey Philly newsletter editor, and Isaac Avalucia, reporter at Axios Philadelphia. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Were you all surprised by this news that the DA dropped the first-degree murder charge against Dial?
Yeah, no, you know what? I was, to be honest with you. I look at that docket pretty consistently, and there was a trial scheduled for September 9th.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the docket, and I see that there's a status hearing last week. And so, I've covered courts for a while in other states, and usually, status hearings, sometimes things can come from it, but oftentimes not much comes from it, especially when a trial date is already kind of scheduled. And so when I found out that the district attorney's office had decided to drop the first-degree murder charge, the lead charge in the case, I was caught completely by surprise by that.
Same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking.
I mean, we have to actually go back to what actually led us here. Isaac, can you catch us up to what happened back in August 2023?
So on August 14th, police officers Mark Dial and his partner, Michael Morris, began pursuing Eddie Irizarry, who's driving through Kensington. They claim that he's driving erratically. They follow him down the wrong way on a street, and he pulls over, and immediately Officer Dial gets out of his police cruiser. He's on the passenger side. He already has his weapon drawn. He goes to confront Mr. Irizarry, who's still seated inside the car. At one point, the body cam footage shows within seconds, Dial opening fire 6 times on Irizarry. And right before he opened fire, he yelled, "I will effing shoot you." Now, some of the body cam footage, Dial's attorneys claim it's a little clearer that his partner Morris, who's on the passenger side, says knife, right? But Dial's attorneys claim that at one point they believe he said gun before he said knife. So it's a little bit hard to hear on the body cam, but Michael Morris, after the shooting, tells his superiors that he definitely shouted knife to his partner. Dial shoots Mr. Irizarry, and then they have to render aid and get him quickly to the hospital. So they load him into the car and transport him to the hospital, where Mr. Irizarry was pronounced dead. Now, after that, the district attorney took up the case, investigated, and then brought first-degree murder as the lead charge in that case, among other charges, including aggravated assault, and then lesser included, like your third-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. It's been somewhat of a legal saga in that the case at a preliminary hearing was initially dismissed by a judge, and then that case, those charges were later reinstated by another judge who decided, no, there is probable cause to hold this over for trial, and a jury should really decide this case. That led into, obviously there have been protests, there's been demonstrations throughout this case at different intervals. And then that kind of led into last week's decision, that stunning decision to do away with the lead first-degree murder charge.
Isaac and Asha, this was, I remember those protests and the calls for justice after those 2 different rulings, tossing out the charges, no, and then reinstating the charges. Now, my question is, for the first-degree charge to be dropped, there was a major misstep in such a big case involving a former Philadelphia police officer, right?
It's really hard to say definitively. I think that's a fair inference based off what has happened. But because there's a gag order that was issued by the judge in the case, it's really hard to get clarity and an explanation from the district attorney's office. Now, from what I was able to gather through my own kind of reporting, this is as much as I know. So last week there was a series of hearings. I believe there was 3 in a very short span under which this issue came up. Basically what happened is the district attorney's office disclosed for the first time that it was planning to call an expert witness who had prepared a report on whether Mr. Dial had violated the state's use of force policies during the course of this encounter. Now, for the first time last week, prosecutors disclosed that expert report to the defense. The defense comes to the hearing and says, "Judge, this is unfair. They just disclosed this week. We don't have time to, fashion our own expert as a rebuttal witness to counter whatever this witness is going to testify in September." Basically, the judge agrees that there's some form of prejudice, and he tells the prosecutors, "Look, you kind of have 2 options because, I got to cure this prejudice that you've created with this late disclosure of this report." So under the Pennsylvania Constitution, a defendant charged with first-degree murder has no right to bail. So basically, the discussion in the court is, well, you guys got to figure that out somehow. So what ends up happening is prosecutors go back, talk to District Attorney Larry Krasner about dropping the first-degree murder charge and making the third-degree murder charge the lead charge. That would pave the way for Mr. Dial to then make bail, and then the judge would in turn postpone the trial from September until May 2025, giving the defense ample time to kind of get its own witness to counter whatever this witness is going to testify at that trial.
So as we get closer to that trial next year, what are you looking out for? And what does this mean for Dial?
Just based off, a point of curiosity, a point of intrigue, I want to see that report, right? I want to see what's contained in that report. I really want an explanation. Even though there's a gag order, I think District Attorney Larry Krasner, especially in a high-profile case, owes the public an explanation as to why there was this late disclosure. And then there's an ongoing requirement to disclose any sort of evidence that comes up. So if they knew from the get-go, which it seems fair to say they did, that they were going to call this expert, as the judge said 10, 11 months ago, they knew that. Why are they sitting on that? Why are they not, at the very least, making the defense put them on notice, hey, we're going to call this expert. That way they at least have somebody waiting in the wings, and then we don't delay this trial. The public is very interested in this case. They were probably very interested in hearing the evidence at that September trial. And, I can only surmise what the feelings from Eddie Irizarry's family, right? They thought they were going to have a case where this officer was facing the possibility, if convicted, of life imprisonment. And now suddenly, jarringly, that's no longer the case. He's facing a third-degree murder charge. And while it's still serious, you could go to prison for up to 40 years if convicted. It's still not exactly what the district attorney charged in the first case and what the family was expecting to hear at this trial.
We should also note that Dial's bail was set at $200,000, and he put that required 10% down to secure his release last Thursday. That was according to some court records reported through the Philadelphia Inquirer. More news after the break. Okay, so back in June, we talked on the podcast about how SEPTA was increasing its penalties for offenses like smoking, littering, playing loud music, and other offenses. That same month, SEPTA also quietly changed the way they dealt with fare evasion. Riders who don't pay the fare or who jump the turnstiles. So instead of issuing $25 fines, SEPTA's going back to issuing summary citations to people who jump turnstiles. That's something they haven't done since 2019, according to some reporting in the Inquirer. And summary citations are a low-level criminal offense. And if you get one, you have to go to court, potentially face fines, community service, and other sanctions. So I don't know. One of my biggest things here about this, about these summary citations, when I think about it, I'm just like, how are they going to enforce this? You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you going to find people doing this and then them taking a citation like this serious? What do y'all think?
I think we have an idea of exactly how they're going to enforce them. I think, they've already kind of teased and previewed some of the things that they're doing, including installing taller gates, right? And then they also had officers recently kind of stationed outside of some of these stations that are so-called hot spots for this very type of behavior where people are known to jump fares, and they've stationed those officers as a deterrent outside some of these stations and are turning people away and like checking fares. Like, did you pay? If so, go ahead. If you didn't, you either got to pay or get to walk in, right? So they've kind of already previewed some of that, although they weren't exactly transparent until the Inquirer uprooted this kind of transition in focus in terms of how they're handling this issue.
Do you all ride SEPTA? And if you do, have you seen more police like by the gates?
Yeah, I ride SEPTA a lot, but I don't use the subway as much. So I personally haven't seen it. It was interesting to hear about it from the Inquirer first.
Isaac, you just mentioned the hotspots known for fare evasion that officers are getting deployed to. Those include the Frankfurt Transportation Center and various L stops along the Kensington Avenue corridor. This policy has been controversial. What are your thoughts on bringing it back?
I feel like they believe they need to do something to deter people that are jumping the gates. Now, I think as presented in the Inquirer's article, there are valid questions about whether this is the correct answer, right? It's already been tried and it wasn't true, so to speak. Why is it true this time? And, there are concerns among civil rights advocates on two ends, right? We're talking about a $2 fare, and we're talking about hitting somebody with a summary offense. And while it is a low-level offense similar to a traffic ticket, it has the potential to go on somebody's record. So again, you're potentially criminalizing people, many of whom can't afford the fare, right? Or I guess the argument is, well, some of them can afford the fare and they're just choosing not to pay. And we saw more of that going on during the pandemic, this push toward lawlessness. So I think that I think it's consistent with the theme that you're seeing from a lot of public officials in the city of Philadelphia, from Mayor Sherrell Parker on down. Now, whether it's the right answer, I don't know, because the civil rights advocates are saying, hey, not only are there these concerns about disenfranchising people and really criminalizing them, but you're clogging up a court system that is already wrought with problems. They already have a bunch of cases. Now, do we need to add a bunch of low-level cases to that already burdensome caseload?
Right. And speaking of that, they've already issued 700 summary citations since June.
I think it does make sense that SEPTA would want to do something about fare evasion. I know in this Inquirer article, it mentioned that police think that this leads to some of the other offenses that they've started ticketing for more, like smoking and whatnot. But there's also like the issue that, SEPTA is kind of in a budget deficit right now. And it also was mentioned in this article that SEPTA officials say that 1 in 4 riders, they're estimating that 1 in 4 riders on the 2 subway lines are not paying the fare, which seems like a lot of money. And like Isaac said, I am also not sure that this is the right way to do it. I know that these new taller fare gates that they have at 69th Street Station that they're testing out have been pretty effective in getting more people to pay. So I feel like that kind of solution would honestly be ideal. Something physical to stop it from happening. But of course, it takes time and money to do that. So I understand that, SEPTA is probably looking for a way to crack down on this using the resources that they currently have. But that said, with the civil rights concerns, I don't know that it's the best way to do it. But I do understand kind of some of the motivations behind it.
For sure.
again, back to this issue of did it work in the past? And SEPTA, by its own admission, they wrote in a 2019 memo that many of these people that were issued summary citations, which can be very steep, up to $300, they didn't show up to court, right?
Right. That was my point in the beginning. I'm like, how can you really enforce this, or like how do you get people to take it serious?
Yeah, if you're if you're not going to pay $2 for a fare, you're not going to pay $300 for a fine.
Right. Coming up next, the Philly News Quiz. Stay tuned. All right, let's test how well we've been following some of the other headlines in the news around Philly. Asha, you've got a news quiz for us.
Yes. So today we're going to do a little twist on our usual news quiz. It's still going to be 3 questions, and it's still going to be about current events, but I'm actually going to be asking you the same question each time, which is, who said it? So basically, the way this will work is I'll give you a quote, I'll tell you the day it was said, and then you tell me which local newsmaker said it. These are all like public figures in the region. So you guys ready?
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous.
Okay.
I know, me too.
I feel like you guys should be able to get at least some of these. So let's just jump in. First up, this quote is from Thursday. Hey Sixers, if you're looking outside of Philly, let's build your new arena in Wilmington. We're all in.
That is the governor of Delaware, Governor Carney.
That's right.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. He posted this on X, the site formerly known as Twitter. We all know here in Philly that the Sixers have this arena project planned for Market East, and it's been pretty controversial, and it's waiting on these government approvals. So, all our neighbors are really trying to jump on that, including New Jersey too. So, Carney's trying to attract them with, he said, an existing fan base, no sales tax, and, quote, the best community around. He even threw some emojis in this tweet that he made. So...
Do you guys agree, though? I mean, who's going to go to bed?
Heck no! I do not agree. Sixers need to stay in the heart of Philly.
Yeah, I think it's really funny. Like, if they really went for this, which I don't think they will, would they change their name? Would they be the Wilmington 76ers?
Oh,
I don't know if that has the same ring to it,
No. And please don't go to Jersey.
Okay, moving along. This quote is from last Tuesday evening. The only North Star that should be in all of our hearts, minds, and spirits is making sure that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are the next president and vice president of the United States of America.
I feel like that has to be Josh Shapiro.
I'm going to say, I want to agree with you, but could it be Mayor Sherrell Parker?
Trinae, you got this one.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah. I feel like this is the tricky one that I threw in there. Yeah, so this was from the Harris-Walz rally that happened last week. And she said this in the context of her broader message that voters should trust Harris's choice of running mate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, even though it didn't end up being Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who Parker and others in the Pennsylvania and Philly Democratic Party had been pushing for, of course. So this was kind of her message, is like, all right, it's decided, now focus.
Isaac, let me just say, there's no conspiracy. She did not tell me these questions beforehand. But the clue that I picked up on was the Tuesday night. So I just want to put that out there. I'm it's the first time I'm hearing these questions.
Hey, you're not going to get a contest from me. You won fair and square. You're 2-0. Let's see if you can go for the sweep.
Okay, last one. This is another quote from Thursday. And we're going to loop back around to sports. The city of brotherly love has always felt like home to me as an NFL player. Philadelphia is a city I truly love, and it has been an honor to wear the Eagles jersey.
Oh, that's Nick Foles.
Nick Foles, yep.
Former Eagles quarterback Nick Foles said this after he announced that he was retiring from the NFL as a Philadelphia Eagle, which is happening September 16th.
And Trinae just retired me from this news quiz.
No, this one was fun. I like this, the way we did this one. But I will have to say, going to the Nick Foles story, Nick Foles, great man. Thank you so much for that Super Bowl. That was Asha Prihar, our Hey Philly newsletter editor, and Isaac Avalucia, reporter at Axios Philadelphia. Thanks for joining me today on CityCast Philly.
Thanks for having us.
Always good to be on, Trinae.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. How'd you do on the news quiz? Share the episode with a friend and see how they do too. And rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.